So what I wanted to share with you today is the process by which you, as up-and-coming professionals, can move through the requirements for membership in your affiliate, whatever that might be. Presumably it's the Alberta one. Okay, but if you move on to some other province, that affiliate, and what you would require if you wanted to become a member of the Canadian Institute of Planners. So first off, the first thing you need to have is a job in planning. Everyone working in planning? Okay. If you're not, you have to get one. Okay, that's the first step. Okay, if you came from a planning school and have a planning degree and it's accredited, but you're working at U of A as a brain surgeon, it doesn't count. Okay, so you have to be working at a professional level, responsible planning position. So that's your first requirement. The next one is if you come from an accredited university or a university that was accredited while you were going to university and graduated from that, and that's one thing you're going to have to watch because some of the universities over time lost their accreditation for periods of time and only have just gotten it back. So if you graduated in that window when it was not accredited, you do not have an accredited degree. Okay, you have a degree in planning, but it's not an accredited one. But if, presuming you've graduated from an accredited program, one of the requirement is working. You now need 2 years of work experience. Now, you can start logging that once you start employment, okay? If you do not have a planning degree from an accredited university, you have a degree in some other program, geography, urban studies, something like that, or a totally unrelated degree, underwater basket weaving, anything like that, what you're required to do is have 5 years of work experience. Okay? Once you've got that 5 years, then you can apply. Come on in, we have a new arriving guest. What is common to both processes, your accredited or what we call the PLAR, Prior Learning Assessment route, is that you need to have a sponsor and you need to have a mentor. A minimum of 1 year for each. If you are in the accredited program, your sponsor is for 2 years. The way you can set that up is once you've applied, you should queue up your sponsor in terms of your employment, and so they can parallel the 2-year window of your work experience that you're accumulating for your membership. Now, the minimum year for each is 1 year, so you must have a mentor for a year and a sponsor for a year. You go through that process. At the end of the time periods that we've talked about, the sponsor and the mentor should be signing off on the sponsorship agreement and the mentorship agreement that you are ready now for the exam. There's 2 exams that all must take. One is the ethics exam, it's online, and the other is the professional exam, again online. And Lyla will talk about that when we get to her part in the program. Successfully passing both exams, all right, concludes the requirement component of membership. You then are a member. The PSB is the body that administers all this. We do not certify you. Okay, what we do is recommend to the PATIA or the affiliate of where you're employed that you're ready for membership, and it's actually the local affiliate that renders that decision. We just process the program, we make the recommendation, but we're not the body that actually hands you your certification. It's your local affiliate who does that. Now, the details of logging your work experience, you can find a lot, the mechanical part of it online, either through your local affiliate or through the PSB website. Lining up a sponsor, okay, that's always a concern. Your sponsor typically is not your supervisor, all right, at your employment. It shouldn't actually be a colleague, someone who is working with you or right next to you. The idea of the sponsor is there a bit of arm's length arrangement, and they're helping guide you through your work experience to obtain the competencies that are required that we're going to measure you on, because this is the exam part, is teaching you competencies, how you use your intellectual skill, your planning knowledge that you've learned in school, now putting it to practical work in the job site. And so it's a competency-based arrangement. Your sponsor should be working with you to make sure that you're achieving that or obtaining that, presumably in your job. Now, if your employer is such that he's got you on a stream or they've got you on a stream and you're not getting that full gamut of competencies, your sponsor should be helping you find other alternatives by which you can get that. Or you can go to your employer and say, look, this is what I'd like to do, but I need to have a broader depth here. Is there other things that I can do that will fully more explore the competencies I'm required to take or to get measured in? So that's the one thing. And then that's documented. You keep record of that. The second part is your mentor. And the mentor is actually someone who, in the broader scope of things, can be a supervisor. It could be someone who you're working with because they're actually watching you. And they're actually trying to help really coach and guide you in the profession itself. Okay, walking you through the competencies in that sense and making sure they're captured, that you're aware of them. Talking about things like, the intellectual requirements that you're doing, the philosophical components. Not so much the technical requirements, okay, that you can draw or that you know how to write a report. Okay, those are important. That's not the key there that the mentor is trying to do. Mentor is trying to flesh out all the component there that's going on. Your sponsor's logging and measuring you in the work experience, and that's the difference. Okay, minimum of 2 years. If you're for the PLAR route, for the accreditation route, is you need your sponsor for the 2-year time period. In the time period as well, you can still have your mentor. That can come in, say, in the second year or so, right off the bat if you wish. But at least 1 year of mentorship, and they're the control. And they should be telling you that, yeah, you're on the track, you're achieving the competencies that are required. Here's where you're missing out and you need some extra work. And then so that when you actually go to write the exams, that you're fully prepared to pass that exam. The ethics exam, a pass is 70%. The professional exam is 80%. Now, one of the things that we've just changed, and up until the sitting of the professional exam of this March, it was essentially a volunteer-run exam process. And we were finding a lot of delays with that process. So it was actually a long form. The exam would be sent to somebody, they would mark it. Exam was always marked by 2 members, and if there was a dispute between the 2, then it would go to a third for a final decision. That process actually took quite a long period of time as we moved physically the exam around all over the place to members who would volunteer their time to mark. And if we had 60 or 70 or 80 candidates writing the exam at that time, it just kind of took forever. And that's why if you were in that process, it took you months to hear about it. Hey, did I pass? Did I fail? Like, what happened? On September the 26th is our first sitting of a new exam process, which is essentially a computer-based combination of multiple choice and short answers, and we should get you an answer within 4 days.
Taylor's just commented that the new exam is 100% multiple choice. I didn't catch that you said short answer and multiple choice, but it is 100% multiple choice. So clarify on that.
Sorry, we had our board meeting yesterday, so we had the conversation on the exam and where we want to take the exam, and that's where I got the short form answers on, because that's where we actually like to go. And our idea with the exam is that it's actually a data bank of questions, so that, for example, if all of you are writing the exam today, okay, the computer would randomly pull out the number of questions that you're required to answer, which would mean that good chance are none of you would be writing the same exam, okay? And that's really the intent over the long term. The other side is to speed up the process, all right? So you get an answer right away. You write the exam. You don't have to wait months as we physically move paper all around. It's online. You get an answer right away. And then you can move on to the next step. And so we're trying that. There's 97 registered for that exam, so you can imagine if we had to go the old system, they probably wouldn't hear until 2018 whether they were in or not. So we tried to avoid that. That was one of the glitches we were seeing in the system, the delay and whatnot. The other part we're finding is people don't prepare for the exam. They think they can wing it. Okay, people, this is not winging it. We are measuring your competency. And if that's one component of it, are you prepared for the things that are required? And people we were finding is in the answering and writing the exam, they thought, well, I've worked in the field, I know all this stuff, or I have an accredited degree, I have all this stuff. And when it actually came to exam time, no, they were finding gaps in it, and that's why they fall below the 80%. They might have scored 75, which, what's that, a B? But that wasn't the bar. So there's a requirement that you prepare as well. When you do the ethics exam, there's a course online you take, and then you write the exam, okay? So don't think that you can just sort of wing it. Oh, I understand what ethical behavior is. Okay, we're testing a broader scope than just that statement. What's ethical behavior? There's more to it than just that. The process is, as I mentioned, sorry, I did skip one thing. If you're following the PLAR route, you work your 5 years, you've got your 5 years experience. Now this probably works for both sides. This is 5 years or 2 years, depending on which route you're following, of professional required planning work. If you're working for a small municipality or a small business, and they do lots of other things that you do, but that other stuff is not planning work, that does not count. That time does not count. It is a time that you are actually working on professional planning work. That's what counts. So if you're, I can think of my job, early on I was the chief cook and bottle washer, the dog catcher, and the planner, but it was only the planning component that really counted. I got paid for all the other stuff, that was good, okay, but it didn't count in the professional side. So when you get your 5 years in the PLAR route, if that's the one you're following, and that would, what happens is that you put a portfolio together of what you have done, all right? That goes to an assessor who will evaluate it to independently say, yeah, you've met the 5-year criteria, and that 5 years worth of work is at the professional planning level. Once that comes back, then you're into the system. You're into the sponsorship and then getting yourself a mentor. Now, people have a lot of questions on, gee, where do I find a mentor? Like, they don't grow on trees and they're not in the phone book or on Google. Okay, here's where your affiliate comes in, and here's where you can contact MaryJane and say, MaryJane, I'm at this point. No, is there someone you can suggest to me, or a couple people I could talk to who might be willing to be my mentor? And she'll give you a name or a couple names, and she'll know about you through the process. And so she'll try and match you up with someone similar who can guide you. So if you're working for a rural municipality and a lot of your planning experience is rural planning, she'll try and match you up to someone who has that experience and that knowledge. If your specialty is urban design, she'll try and match you up with someone like that. But that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. Maybe you want someone totally different. And that synergy of different kinds of things is one way to bring out all the competencies that we're looking for. So when we talk about trying to match you up, if you have someone and you approach them on your own, that's fine too. Okay, there's no problem that way. But if some people, they're shy in the planning profession, okay, if you don't like talking to people, you're probably in the wrong spot. But if you're really at a loss and think, well, gee, I don't want anyone in the office doing this because there's just the two of us. Is there someone else I can do that? Okay, it can be an employer, it can be a non-employer, and it can be a distance kind of person. Through the mentorship, the idea is that you're in contact with that person or the mentor in a relationship that shares information and knowledge. They're guiding you, providing you advice. Okay, you should be meeting with them. It doesn't necessarily mean to be face-to-face. Certainly telephone conversations are mostly how I do it with the ones I am mentoring. Okay, and occasionally we do get together at a conference or a workshop or whatever, and so there's a name to a face. It's just not, this voice at the end of the line. And you develop that relationship. If it's not working, if you don't like who it is, you can change. Okay, don't feel like you're locked into this person and you're feeling, oh, well, I'm just not getting anything out of this, okay? And the same should be with the mentor. If they're arranging time with you and you don't make the contact or have the communication, if you're not doing whatever homework assignment they give you, their obligation really can just say, look, this is not working for us. Maybe you need to find somebody else. Or your heart's not in it, so what's going on here? Okay, in that sense. So it's meant to be a two-way relationship. Sharing knowledge, sharing experience from a more experienced person to someone who's coming up through the ranks. Okay, here's things. Now, in the mentorship side, it's not just a case you phone and give that person, your mentor, the latest problem at work. Okay, well, they might help you with that. Okay, but that's not part of the mentorship thing. They should be going through their criterias and measuring that you're understanding to have knowledge of human settlement, you have knowledge of the politics, you have knowledge of economics. Okay, they're looking for the skill sets that you are required to do on the job. Okay, do you have decision-making capability? Do you have understanding of how systems work? Are you applying those to the planning side? Okay. Communications is a component. Do you have judgment capability? Do you have an understanding of how the interaction of the physical and the human, the economic and the social and the environmental world all comes together? Okay, these are the things that is the element of that. If you have a work problem, yes, I'm sure, and it does happen. They call, I got a problem here, and we help them out. Okay, and that's part of the relationship you develop with your mentor. Okay, and they should be free to ask you pretty much anything, and they should be asking you stuff. Okay, how about this? How about that? It's a guiding process. Okay, they shouldn't be giving you the answer, but guiding you to get to the answer. Now, there's a cost. The way this route, all this effort first goes through the Professional Standards Board. So Taylor is online listening in, and Taylor is one of the staff at Redstone, which is the agency that the PSB has hired to be essentially our executive director and the support staff that we have. The PSB essentially is a creation of all the affiliates, with the exception of OUQ and MCIP. OUQ was in initially and then dropped out. And so it's a board that is set up to govern and administer the accreditation process for universities and the candidacy process for members working through for their full membership. And so we use them. So a lot of the work, if you can look at the PSB website, if you have questions, you can contact Taylor at Redstone. You can also contact MaryJane and Dana at the staff at APPI's office as well to get information. Okay.
So is the new exam you can take at any time? It's not required to be the specific September,
just at the moment, it's still on a fixed date, but that's the sort of one of the other threads to it, is that sort of when you're ready, you just go. There's some logistics as we work out the security and all that kind of thing, but that's a long-term, shorter-term plan to get all in going.